Warning. This podcast contains explicit sexual language and should only be listened to at work if you're looking for an excuse to connect with your HR representative. Additionally, all mentions of the word women include cis and trans women. If you are genderqueer, gender fluid, figuring it out, anything in between, and feel like this conversation is also important for you, you are welcome here.
Will you open up with me? These pages, they can feed your innermost desires. Do you feel inspired? Are you getting what you need? Are you coming curiously? A secret safe with me. And here you can simply be yourself. Sweet romance. Come on in, come on in, come on.
Hi, y'all. This is Jace, she, they, and you found Jace Reads Romance, a community dedicated to empowering women about sex and sexuality through the reading of romance novels. I'm standing again. It's like a whole different perspective.
I know.
Cool. Did it take me a year to figure out that I could do this? Yes, it did. Yeah, it did.
Hey, we're always growing, always learning. It's fine.
I'm now trying to remember when I got this desk, because I didn't move in with this desk. That's a sit-stand desk. At some point, I got a sit-stand desk, but it never occurred to me to record while standing, like ever. I shall forever be sitting while recording.
Right? Well, and I mean,
even
our recordings can go a while. Like, so sitting is legit.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's just very funny. For those of you who have not watched the video of last week's episode, I was standing because I was rearranging stuff in my office. No, I don't have pictures for you because I'm too much of a neat freak to let you see that. And by that, I mean, I'm actually just too messy for the anxiety in me to let you see that. Yes. I'm not neat. I wish I were neat. And then Michael went, wow, what great energy. I love the perspective. I loved how everything looked with you standing. So this is for you, Michael. It's for you. I hope you're happy.
You know he's cheering as he's listening to this.
He is. He's cheering. He's like egging me on.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be a special occasion thing, like on birthdays or anniversaries. It's a terrible joke, but I went with it anyway.
It is funny. I like it.
It's funny because it's Michael.
Exactly.
But today, I actually feel great. This is amazing. We're recording on a Monday, and I attended Wild and Windy in Chicago over the weekend. And normally, I am still fried by book conferences. At this time, normally, I'm still a puddle of blah. And I think the main reason is this is my second year at this conference. So I had a different experience, and I'll explain a little bit more. And also, this one's local. So we've talked about book conferences and things of that nature, and I'm going to heavily suggest that your first conference is local because
I would.
Was so much easier.
Yeah, because you don't. Well, one, probably the biggest one, you don't have to worry about a hotel. Like
you don't have to worry about a hotel.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, oh no, did I pack everything that I needed? Like I can run home.
Yeah, exactly. It takes that stress of like, do I have everything off of you? Because you're like, I'm just gonna run home real quick. I'll be right back.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was so much easier, just all of that. And last year, I don't think I even talked about, we didn't do an episode on Wild and Windy. I don't think
we did.
Not specifically Wild and Windy.
Yeah.
The conference, but it was my first book conference ever.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was running on adrenaline the whole time. Like the whole experience was social anxiety and Jace, just like at DEF CON 4 or whatever the high level is.
I remember here, one. One is the
Oh,
worst.
one is the bad one.
Yes. The lower the number, the worse it is. But
So weird.
I don't understand it. But I remember you talking about it and how anxious you were going into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I seem like a really fun, engaging, wonderful person when I'm talking one-on-one through a camera. I am horrifyingly awkward in person and have like problematic social anxiety. So if you meet me in real life and I am not this vivacious, I apologize. I'm doing my best, friends. I'm doing my best. And it was very interesting because this was my first conference last year. It wasn't my first conference of 2025, but I have been to 4 others between last year and this year, and it is the first conference that I'm going to twice. So it was very interesting seeing the conference in terms of its organization, but also attending the conference knowing people who were going to be there would be. It was just a very different experience. So we're going to talk about that juxtaposition. What was it like year 1 to year 2? And I don't think we're going to do this for every single conference I go to this year, because there are a few that I'm going to a second time. And we did a whole, like, what did I learn after the year of book conferences in 2024? But specifically, attending a book conference from year to year, as one does, and you might have the same kind of introspection if you go to any type of event year over year, like a Ren Fair, like a Comic-Con, like an anything, like a festival, anything. You have expectations, things change, things evolve, your understanding of it and how to keep yourself well and healthy changes and evolves. And so things that I really did this year and things that I observed this year that were different from last year. I think that's kind of where I'm going with this, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Things that were different logistically, I bought a different ticket this year. Last year, I bought a resold ticket. I didn't get tickets when they launched. I went through the Facebook group and I was offered a ticket being resold, and it was a general admissions ticket. And with all of the emotions and overwhelm that I felt last year, I decided this year I was going to buy a gold ticket. I was going to buy a VIP ticket. And the answer to, do I think it was worth it, is maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. So I bought a VIP ticket this year, and for the VIP ticket, it entitled.
Allowed.
I was entitled. Well, I got access to 4 different things.
Okay.
I got early access to the signing rooms. So VIPs were allowed access 1 hour before general admission tickets.
Okay.
So an extra 2 hours in the signing room with half the number of people. I should state that it wasn't as though there were a very small percentage of attendees who are VIPs. It's split into 2. Half the attendees, 500, were VIPs. Half the attendees, 500, were general admission. So
Okay.
it's still 500 people walking through the space.
Right.
It's not a tiny amount.
Right.
So that was the first thing. And probably the thing that I wanted most is I wanted access, especially to some of the bigger name authors that last year I didn't get access to. I didn't have a good enough line number or anything like that. And so
Yeah.
I kind of missed out on a few authors that I wish I'd seen. So that was really the big thing. You also get access to an additional panel, which I thought would be fun. I love me a panel.
I know.
There was a VIP only party on Friday night. And then your swag bag was supposed to have a few more items in it, which, depending on how you feel about swag, might sway you, might not. So here's how I felt about those things. Having the extra hour was very helpful. It was really helpful, especially for my anxiety level. It was so great. And I did see all the authors that were on my I want list. So I was successful this year in that goal. Now, I also know people who were in general admission who hit their goals or who didn't have as many authors. If you don't have a ton of authors, the VIP is not going to be very important to you. Doesn't matter. So I'm not saying that's a make or break for anything. The additional panel was cool. I liked it. It wasn't necessarily any different than any other panel. It was just one other panel there were 2 options for panels and they were fun. And the party, I didn't even go to because it was held at the same time as the rest of the panels. And so for me, it didn't feel like a perk because it meant that I missed out on something else. So I didn't love that. Other VIP experiences that I've had at other conferences, they were in addition. So they were additional time. They were the Thursday night. They were in a break period. There was something that you got that was extra.
Yeah.
And not just like, and so it didn't, I didn't even go to it.
I feel like that was a weird time to put it because then, like you said, you would have to choose. And if you're there to see authors and people talk to you and ask questions on the panels, why are you going to go to this party when you're at the
and there were a few there were a few authors that were like sponsoring the event and they were there. And so I think there were like 4 or 5 and other authors could just go and attend it. So I think it was an opportunity to mingle with authors in a different way. Again, it's 500 people who have access to this event. It doesn't feel intimate. I went to a VIP event at Love Y'all that was axe throwing with quite a few authors. And there were maybe 20 or 25 of us there with 5 or 6 authors. So it felt really intimate.
Like I could intimate space. Yeah.
So that felt like a VIP perk to me. The other thing is they are a wristband. This was a very big wristband event.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's what I mean by wristband event. So there are, as I said, 1,000 attendees.
Yeah.
1,000 attendees. I was just checking my notes. And about 65 authors.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So it is a very big signee to author ratio.
Yeah.
And their plan this year was they had, and I liked some things that they did, and I didn't like other things that they did. And they did the same thing last year as they had the big signing room and then a smaller signing room where they put the people they thought would be high volume authors so that you wouldn't have you could have bigger lines for these authors that wouldn't impede on the space of other authors.
Okay.
This year they had fewer authors in that room, which was very helpful. What they did, and what I wish they did, or what I'm going to talk about, what they did is give you individual wristbands for each author. And you're not supposed to go to the author until your wristband number is called.
Okay.
But the problem is, once you're in the room, you don't want to leave the fucking room.
Right.
Then you have to wait in line to get into the room again. So, but they're weird about what number you are. So I had number 1 for an author in that room.
Oh, wow.
But I also had number 207 for an author in that room. So
you had, did they make you leave?
So I didn't go. So once your number is called, it's not, 200 through 210, it's 1 through 210. So you can always go and get in line once your number is called. And so what I did is I waited until the second day. And they were like, "Why did you do that? You could have gotten in the room." I said, "Yeah, I could have for number 1, but I didn't want to get in line with 207 for another author." And what I wish they'd done is given you 1 wristband for the whole room.
Right.
Because
that
if
would
you
make
only want to
sense.
see one author, you're going to get in, get out.
Exactly.
And apparently that's what they did at a different conference, but they thought it wouldn't work at Wild and Windy Chicago. I do wish that they did that, and that was feedback that I gave to people working there. I know it's feedback I'll submit later too. And then in the big signing room, they had authors along the walls, and then they had rows of authors. And their assumption was the authors along the walls where they made very big aisles were the ones that would need wristbands, the slightly more popular authors, they thought. And if an author was in an aisle, they didn't want to wristband them. I don't even think they had wristbands prepared for them, which is different than other conferences I've gone to where they assume everyone will need wristbands at some point. And so there's always someone there to give out wristbands for every single author. And I like that because it also makes you feel like you're like every author has the same like assumption of like you're gonna have a line and we're gonna treat you the same as every other
Yeah.
author here.
Yeah.
But it meant that some authors that have more recently gotten popular were
Mhm.
just overwhelmed. Kayla Gross, for example, was in the
Oh.
middle of an aisle and wasn't given wristbands. And so got absolutely
bombarded.
stampeded, bombarded, and they had to make wristbands for her. And so I understand like logistics and money and prep and stuff like that. It's a pain in the ass to do it for everyone. But I think
Yeah.
you should have everyone prepared for wristbands because you
Yeah.
don't know if in the last, 3 months,
Right.
someone's going to blow up. There was an author, I didn't even get to her. It's fine. I don't need to talk about it. I haven't read anything by her, but I'd heard of her in the last 4 months-ish. Never heard of her before, but started seeing her a lot. Her line was like out the room sometimes. She was on the wall by a door, thank goodness, and they had to create a lineup outside of the signing hall for her.
Dang.
I know. She also was not used to the popularity, and so she was very, 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 very slow, is what I heard from people, which is
Oh.
why she was not getting through anyone,
Yeah.
which I get and I love, and that's so
Right.
sweet.
Right.
So
Right.
sweet. But I think overall they did a really great job with a lot of their other more nitty-gritty upgrades. I had a great time. I thought the volunteers were incredible. I think if there's one thing that you really do need to remember when you're going to an event is most of the people working are volunteers. They are doing this for free. They are doing this because they love it, and be nice to them. There's this one volunteer who volunteered on day 1, and I saw her during the signing on day 2. And I just went up to her and I said, like, thank you. I always felt like I was in really good hands. You were always well informed. You were just like a solid rock when we were lining up and everything was crazy. And she looked at me and said, thank you, because you have no idea how many times I've been called a name this weekend. I was like,
why do people
ew,
have to people?
why?
Like, why?
Why?
That
Which
just
is
makes
so odd to me. So
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah.
And that statement made me really mad. But in general, like the people there were wonderful.
Good.
So those are kind of the logistics of it. I think it did a really great job. I think the equipment that I kind of settled on at the end of last year when I gave my speech, so if you want, I'll link the stuff I learned at podcasts
Yeah.
episodes in the show notes because I have really settled on my accoutrement, as it were, and my style of stuff. And
Yeah.
I love it. I always have the cart. I am a firm believer of the cart with a cup holder. And I now put a protein shake in my cart. I do it every day because I'm too nervous to like eat beforehand. But if I get a moment, I can drink a protein shake and I can stave off the hangry. And I have other snacks and stuff. But the protein shake has been really clutch the last 2 conferences.
That's smart. That's really
I
smart.
know. And I just protein powder and water, whatever. It's nothing fancy, but it's enough to, like keep me going. I also like my protein shakes, if they're just water, like really thin, like really, really thin. So it's not, I'm not chewing them at all. So just chug it. I know. I'm weird. You can.
Thanks for that
we
textural
listen and we don't
remembrance.
judge. Something else that happened this year, and I have mixed feelings about it, but I like that they went somewhere different. Last year we talked about, I hated one of their moderators, and they have the same MCs in each of their panel rooms, which I don't know how I feel about that in general. Because if you don't like someone, you don't like them, and then you're stuck with them as your moderator for the whole time.
Exactly.
So I think that the moderators I saw this year were better. They're not my fave. I'm not going to name names. I feel like there were pluses and minuses. Also, clearly, these aren't people who like talk to humans in this way for a living. I'm like, you could absolutely do better than this, even if it's an author being the MC of your panels, like I've seen at so many other cons. You either need an MC who knows what they're doing or an author because they're on the same level. And that's something that's interesting to me. But the second day of panels, and they're shorter because there's a party, a closing party. So there were only 2 panels on the second day as opposed to 4.
Okay.
Because 6 to 10 on the first night and then 6 to 8 on the second night. Last year, they did a narrator experience. So 2 authors were there and talking about what is it like to have an audiobook, and there was a narrator who narrated a spicy scene from each book, and it was a really fun experience.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is a but. They did it again this year. The only options for panels on the second night were narrator experiences.
Okay.
So you had authors and a narrator in a room, and the narrator would narrate a spicy scene chosen by the author from their book.
Yeah.
There were moments when it was really odd.
And
I don't know if it was last year the narrator was a woman, and I don't know if it was just more chill because she was a woman and speaking in front of mostly women, reading books by women. But this year the narrator was a man.
Okay.
And he was so, there were moments when like this dude is uncomfortable.
Oh no.
These authors are uncomfortable.
Oh no.
Like, not necessarily in a bad way, but in a like, I'm saying these words
in front of a lot of women.
Like over 100 people, including the author who wrote them.
Right, because normally they're sitting in a booth or in their own little recording area. And like it's not that way.
You're also getting live reactions from the audience.
Right. God.
That's ruining the timing and the flow. And it felt almost like live theater, which was cool, but odd in some ways. I'm not going to name names. I'm not naming any names in this because I think that the authors did what they were supposed to do. They gave a spicy scene, and the narrator did a great job and narrated the spicy scene. And there was even one moment where I think the book is narrated in duet, and the poor author had to read the lines for the FMC, and she was dying, could not, was laughing and crying, laughing, trying to hold it together, and couldn't say anything.
No.
And this is a spicy scene from a male point of view, and so her lines are like, yes, you fuck me so well. You eat my pussy so good, daddy. It's not a soliloquy of feelings.
No. So I can totally see the reaction being that way for the author.
When I'm watching the author stare at the script and start laughing and trying to hold it together, and the narrator's doing their thing, I'm like, what is about to happen? What is the next line she has to say? And she just goes, yes. That was her only line. It was yes. And she couldn't get it out. And I get it. You're the author. You're not the narrator. And so I have weird feelings about it.
Yeah.
But also, I think there was a moment, and maybe this is a different episode, but the women in this, the room was feral. The room was feral. And there are a lot of ways, and I think the patriarchy fucks over men, and they're not taught how to talk to women or listen to women or believe women. But women are also not taught how to express their deep sexual yearning for men. And this poor narrator who's married, who doesn't go by his narrator name, he uses a different name. So it's not like people were even saying his correct name.
Yeah.
At one point, I mean, this is your fault, dude. You said good girl, and like everyone was like, "Oh, good girl." I'm like, okay, y'all, we need to like keep it
Rein
together.
it
He's
in.
not
Like, come
calling
on.
you a good girl. He's not calling you a good girl. This isn't for you.
Yeah.
But also, I think women are not taught how to handle their own sexuality. I think we're gonna save that for a different podcast episode.
Yeah.
And so while I like that they went with something different, because last year the panel that I attended was so great and so wonderful, I might choose to not have it only be a man. At the very least, have a woman there also.
Right. Like a woman
Yeah,
narrator
a
as
woman narrator
opposed to
there.
the author.
I don't even mind the author being there. I think it was really like it is really interesting to talk about the process of audiobook narration and how do you
Yeah.
choose, because some authors sell the rights to their audiobooks to production
That's fair.
companies, some
Mhm.
do it themselves. There was a really honest conversation about why are more things not recorded as duets, and the
Mhm.
author said, well, if you're paying for it out of pocket, you might have just jumped from a $3,000 investment for this
Yeah.
to a $10,000
Yeah.
investment. And that is money that you might make back, but you also might not have on hand. So, and it also depends on the narrator's calendar. If they can be, it takes more work. The narrator was saying that because of his business aspect of it, there are certain projects that he can or cannot take, or certain things he does or does not do, because it's more work for less money, or the amount of work for the same amount of money. And he has to make a business decision sometimes. And that's something that I think we forget, is like, yes, this is art and it's beautiful, but it's also a job. And for the
Yeah.
most part, none of us have a job where like that we're not professional. Like, these people are incredibly professional in their job, regardless of whether they're writing or reading something steamy. They
Yeah.
aren't necessarily feeling something steamy in the moment of
Right.
creation.
Right.
And as great as it is that you get yourself off to these books, that's your business, and you don't need to tell the people who've created this about your sexual stuff in person. Like,
Was that
oh my God, I've never
happening?
come so hard. I have heard of it. I haven't talked to enough narrators to have any of them tell me, but I
Mhm.
have had authors tell me that people will say explicit things to them about their experiences with the books, which on the one hand is wonderful, but is
Yeah.
not an appropriate thing
No.
to say.
Definitely not appropriate.
It's definitely
No.
not appropriate. We might have a whole like what's etiquette. I'm getting so many ideas, like etiquette with authors.
Yeah. The whole time you've been telling this story, it makes me think of a story I read back in my Tom Hiddleston fangirl days. When he actually it wasn't back. I was out of the fandom when he was doing this
Yeah.
play, but it was the most recent. I don't remember what play it was, but he met his wife in this play,
Mhm.
and there was a story of someone who went to see it, and
Mhm.
a lady was sitting in the area near them and was like getting herself off whenever he was on stage. Yeah. I do not know. Full disclosure, I do not know how true and accurate that story is, but knowing some of his fans, I can believe it happened.
I want to vomit.
It's disgusting. Like,
I want to vomit for so many reasons. Like, you're in public, you're around
Mhm.
other humans, and like that is a complete. You wanna masturbate to Tom Hiddleston in your own time? Absolutely. You want to read some fanfic? You want to watch videos of him on YouTube? You want to watch videos of him on YouTube? Absolutely fine.
yeah,
But no, you are trying to include him in an experience that he has not consented for, that the people
exactly.
around you have not consented for. No,
Exactly.
thank you.
Yeah.
Nope, no.
So, like, that story was just in my head the whole time you were talking about how the audience
Yeah.
was reacting to the narrator.
Yeah. So, and that I don't think is anything about Wild and Windy, and that's just a panel thing. Like panels are panels, and they're interesting to me. Like
Yeah.
what does each conference decide to have panels on? How do they organize them? Things of
Yeah.
that nature. And this is something that they did from last year to this year that's new, and so sharing it with you. This year, I want to talk about like what do we do? Yes, you have real
No.
thoughts.
I was going to say, I don't know what I was going to say. Continue.
I'm gonna sneak in like things that changed about me from last year. So number one, I was not as anxious.
Yeah. You had several conventions under your belt.
I also knew people at this
Yeah.
event. So last year I met they're not like couples, but two twosomes
Yeah.
that just took me under their wing and were so kind.
Mhm.
And the first twosome, I mean, I met them both at registration on Thursday night, and clearly I was panicked enough that they were like, "Hey, you look like you need a friend."
Oh.
In the first twosome were older women and Rose and Jen.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's gonna be mad that I say their names. And Rose, I think she looked at me and went, "Do you need a cupcake?" And she had cupcakes that she'd baked and fed me, and we were chatting. And
Aw.
this had been they'd been to these before, and they knew it was happening, and
Yeah.
so sweet. And Rose looked down at my shoes and went, "You can't wear those. Those are too cute." And I went, "What?" She goes, "You will die if you wear those shoes tomorrow. You need to wear sneakers."
Mm.
And I went, "Okay." And she gave me her phone number, and we connected on the internet. And whenever she saw me in the event space, she like gave me a hug and reassured me. She's
Oh.
also the person that I learned my wristband trick from. And these are like all the wristbands are paper wristbands with
Yeah.
a sticker that you get at, something, whatever. They're
Yeah.
not fancy. And what I'd done is I'd put them all on loops on my ID tag,
Mhm.
which was wrong.
Okay.
Because it made it really hard to find anyone, and they
That makes
all got
sense.
mixed up, and I couldn't differentiate between like one and another. And like if I tried to, the name tags were also much bigger this year, but I kept like going around and around. And so any organization I had just was an absolute failure. And she had this massive water bottle and stuck the wristbands onto the outside of the water bottle,
That's
which meant that
brilliant.
it's so brilliant, which meant she could always see them. When
Yeah.
she got through a line, she ripped it off. So she wasn't searching through wristbands.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. And I've done it at every conference since. And I always get compliments on it. Like, "Oh, that's brilliant." I said, "Yeah, I stole it from someone else at a conference."
I love that though.
You have to
That's-
scrub your water bottle really hard afterwards, but it's so brilliant.
Yeah, that's very smart. I feel like
And
that could be used in a lot of different wristband conventions.
any wristbanding situation
Yeah.
that you need, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So Rose and Jen were just so kind, and even this time I ran into Rose at Romance Con. She was there with her book club. She and Jen were both at this conference. She invited me to her room because she had baked again, and like just
Aw.
enveloped everyone that I was with in this warm, loving hug. So wonderful.
I love
And
that.
so that was really nice to like have these people who were very kind and caring and sweet, and like
Mhm.
like in my moment of panic, I'm like, "I need some love and affection," and gave that to me. And then I met these other two women, Sheena and Haley, who was on our podcast,
Yeah.
at registration as well. They had their backpacks, their suitcases. And then we kept seeing each other at panels and bemoaning this terrible moderator.
That's right. I remember you saying that that you had
Just
done that with them.
And again, we stayed in contact on the internet, and they both came back. And so it was just wonderful to see these new friends again from
Yeah.
last year. I saw another Jen, a different Jen, that I met at Steamy Lit here at Wild and Windy, which was
Fun.
lovely.
Yeah.
I saw her, you disappear into 1,000 people and you see them again.
Yes.
And then there were also people that I've gotten to know in the Chicago book community who I go to signings with, who bought the local ticket. So it was fun to have our little like small book event group of people who were
Yeah.
at this big event. And building that book community is really wonderful. And so I highly
Yeah.
recommend that. And it's also why I think going back the second year was so fun, because I felt like not that going solo is a bad thing. Most conferences will have a solo chat or solo meetup, so you can meet other
Yeah.
people who are traveling by themselves, and you can certainly meet people as I did. But there is something about knowing people who are
Yeah.
there and having that community again,
Yeah.
which made it so much fun, because, you know, there are people to dance with and people to run around with and people to look at with when it's, you know, hour 3 of day 2 of signing and you're like, I don't know if I can go on. And you can't.
Tell mother I love her.
Tell her I love her. Yeah. If anyone can guess what that line is from, you get stickers. I will send you stickers.
There you go.
Do you know what it's from?
No clue. I'm just gonna say I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. I was like, it might be too easy of a musical theater moment, but apparently not. Pulling it from the depths.
Now I'm gonna be preoccupied. But anyways,
That's
continue.
The other thing that I did for this event, for myself, is number one, I didn't feel like I had to read every single author. And I don't know if it's because I went to so many events last year where the author count was bigger, sometimes more than 3 times bigger, where there was no way I could read that many authors. But once you let go of the expectation that you're going to read all the authors, you just pick the ones that work for you. And there were authors that I'd read last year that this year I went, you know what, I don't need to read a second book from. And so I just was able to find new ones. Or if I really wanted to read a second book by them, I did so. And so taking that pressure off of yourself, knowing that you're going to notice new authors, you're going to see new lines, you're going to see a cover, because you're looking at a list and you're like, I don't know your name. But then so for example, there was an author listed as Erin Nicole / Emma Fox. And I was like, I don't know anything about you. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I saw her on a panel and she was lovely. And I thought to myself, like, I feel like I know her. I feel like I know her in some other way. So I was looking her up, and it turns out I did. She has a 3rd fucking pen name, Erin Nicholas, and I'd read an entire series of hers 10 years ago when it came out.
Oh,
and then I
wow.
went up to her table and I saw that I'd read another book under one of the listed names, but I didn't read it because of her. I read it because a friend of mine narrated it. Shayna, who was on the podcast back when we started.
Yeah.
And so I went to this table and I said, I know you. I know you from the original Sapphire Falls. And they said, did you know there's a 2nd generation now? And I went, no, I did not, friend. And then that series, and we also talked about Shayna and like our connection with that, and like that was fun. And so that's when I didn't even realize that I had read until I saw them at the conference.
Yeah, that's so fun.
I'm much better at remembering covers also than author names. So especially if I haven't read them just yet, but they're on my TBR. So there were some authors who I went, oh, I do know you. I know that cover, that book's been on my TBR. I keep hearing great things about it, but I've never said it.
Yeah.
And last year I felt really awkward. I was only going to go to the authors that I'd read, and I felt weird if I didn't buy a book or I didn't have a book for them. And so I bought some books that I was not as thrilled about, just because I felt I had to. So I have a whole pile of those that are all signed, and I feel terrible. I shouldn't have bought them. And so this year I just didn't feel that same pressure.
Yeah.
And I got, so for those of you watching at home, I apologize. I will put a picture of this in the show notes, so don't worry if you are just listening to this. I bought a signing book sleeve.
Okay.
And
that
it was
is
from a vendor.
So cute.
From a vendor who was working there, Bend Me Not Creations. And it has little squares that kind of look like a bookshelf. And I had authors sign it. And it was lovely. And so like, and nobody cares because a lot of these authors know that there are e-readers, people who don't buy books and they exclusively read ebooks. And so there were lots of things being signed, and I didn't feel awkward about not having books. Now, the great thing that Wild and Windy does is part of your ticket includes this signing journal, which is great and terrible. Great
Yeah.
because you don't have to spend any more money on anything and you can get this signing journal filled with signatures. Terrible because they have to print it at some point and some authors like have to cancel or whatever. And so there are random things that don't line up, but they do have blank pages in the back for authors who were added last minute or things of that nature.
Okay.
And last year I felt like I needed to fill in the entire journal with like what I read and what was my TBR and all of this Thursday night before I went to signings Friday. No, I will be filling this out afterwards. But it also means that all the people who I did get signatures from, I can then look at my signing book sleeve and go, oh, that's C.M. Stunich's or Sarah Cates or Ashley Jade or whoever it is, because I have an actual reference for all of these people.
That's great. I do like the signing journal. Like that's actually really cool of them. But I also get like the downside of it too. That makes sense. But
I do. There, life is gonna life, and there were some authors who are listed in the journal who had to back out, and so they just have blank pages. But then there were authors that came in at the last minute who were able to come in at the last minute, and they had blank pages.
That's
like
smart.
Everything but the author name in the back so that you could add them in, which was just really lovely.
Yeah.
And so that was a really wonderful thing. In general, book people are the best people. They are.
Yeah.
And the friends that I made last year and who were back this year are so welcoming and kind and wonderful. And like Haley made me earrings.
I know.
I'll put a picture of these two in the show notes. I love books.
They're so
Does it look
cute.
correct to you or not?
Yeah.
Is it backwards? Okay.
No. It says I love books. I heart books.
It does. Like
it's so cute.
It's amazing also, like, because you have to be able to read, but anyone can read romance. Like there isn't a defining characteristic of who reads romance and who doesn't. It's every socioeconomic, every gender, every race, maybe not men, but there were men. There were quite a few men there. I was like, look, one of them had a cat in a backpack. That was like my favorite part. Cat in a backpack. But it is primarily women, and they're so lovely. Like it really is a wonderful experience to be around humans and who like the same thing that you do. And you're going to meet people outside of your regular sphere. So yeah, we all love books, but we're not all the same. We're not all from the same place. We don't all have the same level of college education. We're not in the same kind of workforce. You're going to interact with and get to meet people who wouldn't have been in your sphere otherwise. And I think just like diversifying your reading is important, knowing lots of different people in the world is important. And so getting to meet them and connect and build relationships through this one thing, this romance world, really is a wonderful opportunity to also become a more well-rounded human in the people you interact with and the perspectives you get on why they read romance and what they read and life in general. And it's a really necessary thing, especially in this day and age. So would I recommend going to the same conference twice? Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Even though there were a lot of authors that I'd seen before, that I'd read before that maybe I didn't like and they were there again or whatever it was really interesting to me to see this conference grow from year to year. And this is only the 7th year of this conference. It's not even old.
No.
It's just a little bit older than COVID. So, which is how we shall now refer to everything. It's just a little older than COVID.
Pretty much just a little older than COVID.
Pretty much. Geez. And so just imagine like 7 years of a business, of a conference, of an entity. There's so much more that it has to grow and to learn and to do and evolve as romance evolves. And are there things that I would personally change? Yeah, and they go beyond even the stuff that we talked about.
Yeah.
But it was really heartwarming to see that even if all the changes I wish had been implemented between last year and this year didn't happen, they are actively growing and working to improve this experience in this community and to serve us to the best of their ability. And I loved that. And I loved getting to connect with my friends, and I loved getting to be around book people again. And it was such a wonderful experience. I did also buy too many books. And by too many, I mean less than I bought at Love Y'all, like less than I bought at Love Y'all. So let's keep that in perspective. Perspective.
Is it it's a double digit?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it was. Hold on, let me see. Do I have them?
20, 28?
No, less than that. I'm going to count them for you right now.
23?
Bitch, it was only 18. That feels wrong, though. Because there were 5 books that I pre-ordered, 7 books that I got from a series, and then I went back and got another one, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I guess 5. Yeah, 18. Yeah, only 18. Yeah, only 18.
I'm so proud.
Thank you. Thank you. Like 8 of them are Kayla Gross books.
I said, like, it's gotta be one of them is like one author.
Kayla Gross. Well, yeah, Kayla Gross and then Chloe Leese. Chloe Leese, this is because I knew that she's also going to be a romance con. And for some reason, she just was not as popular. She was like in the middle of a row, and she's only trad. She's not indie at all. And so her books aren't on KU. And so I do wonder if that affected the readership of this particular conference.
Might have, yeah.
But I only had her Shakespeare-inspired trilogy, and she has a 7-book series that I've heard magical things about. Okay. And I was like, I'll probably just get it before Romance Con. But knowing how many books I'm bringing to Romance Con, it's more than 3 shelves. I thought, you know what? I will see if the Last Chapter bookstore that had a space at the event. They had the 7 books. If they're still there by the end of night 1, I will buy the series and I will have her sign them now so that I don't have to bring 7 more books with me to Romance Con. And I did that. And I showed up the second day and with a stack of books, and she looks at me and goes, "What?" And then, I know I made you sign 3 books yesterday, and I said I was going to see you again at Romance Con. I will see you at Romance Con, but I'm having you all of them today.
All of them today.
My God. And that was my experience at Wild and Windy, but so other things that I did that also helped me not feel exhausted were, number 1, I swear the protein shake really helped because I never had that crazy crash. We went out and had great dinners. So the people that I were there with, and a lot of them are out of downers. So we did the most Chicago food that I have ever eaten in a consecutive amount of time. So night 1, we did Giordano's deep dish pizza. Night 2, Portillo's. But I will never, ever in my life eat a Chicago style hot dog. I'm sorry. I won't. I got something else. It's fine.
I can't.
I won't do it. I'm to New York for that. And then number 3, we went to Small Cheval, which is a chain here of burgers and fries and things like that. Oh, so fucking good. I also don't eat like that regularly. I was like, whoa, this is a lot of fried food, a lot of heavy food. Thank God it's nighttime. And I didn't feel pressured to stay out late or get up early, and took rest when I needed it. So between the signings and when we had a break and weren't eating dinner before panels and stuff, I really just like starfished and didn't move. or connect with people. Like my mother
Yeah.
texted me and was like, I need to talk to you. I'm like, not this weekend.
You got to wait till at least Monday.
Yeah. And so like making sure I took that time, and even on Sunday, I let myself take a nap in the middle of the day and went to bed early. Just like
Good.
keeping it chill meant that today I don't feel overwhelmed like
Yeah.
I typically do. And I do believe that a huge part of that is I didn't have to travel, you know? Like I didn't
that because
I didn't
traveling
have to
always
fly
takes
or
a
take a
whole lot of
train.
energy out of
Yeah.
anyone. So
And even when I went to Milwaukee, which is fairly close to Chicago, I took the train up. So it wasn't like I was flying or airports or anything like that.
right.
It was a train that was the train station I could walk to from the hotel. So I just
Okay.
walked the 10 minutes to the train
Yeah.
station, got on a train and sat. But it's still a lot of energy, especially
Yeah.
for an anxious person. And so being able to
Yes.
just go home was
Mhm.
nice. And so if you are an anxious person or you have very few spoons, I highly recommend an event that is closer to you, that
Yeah.
if you can, even if it's, an hour's drive, that is still doable. You can still go home at the end of the day. You can still
Yeah.
have your stuff, your
Yep.
care, all of that. And I am so glad. I almost didn't buy a ticket for this one again because I was like, oh, I went last year. I am really glad that I did. I'm glad that I had this experience. And I look forward to the rest of the conferences that I have this year. I don't think you're going to get these little check-ins afterwards because there are too many, and I did a lot of my speaking of them last year, but this was great, and I thank everyone who put up with my anxiety before it happened. And all of my friends who were kind and supportive and took weird photos of me during it. It was just a wonderful time. It was a wonderful time.
Good. It sounds like you had a lot of fun.
I did.
Good.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Jace Reads Romance is a 3 Paws Productions podcast. Produced by Seffi, edited by Michael Achenbach. Our theme song is written and performed by Diana Weishauer. For show notes and more, head to www.jacereadsromance.com. That's JAYCE Reads Romance. Follow us on socials at Jace Reads Romance everywhere. For more exclusive content, visit us on Substack, where you'll find extended episodes, bonus episodes, and more. Have a question, story, or a book recommendation you know I'll love? Email Jace at jacereadsromance.com or call and leave a voicemail at 661-JACE-RR. That's 661-529-2377. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And as always, this is Jace, holding space